Thank you, everybody. We enjoy doing these every month. We're really excited to be here. We really appreciate you taking the time, whether it is your lunch hour on the East Coast, whether you're just getting started on the West Coast, or you're anywhere in between. You're taking time out of your day to listen to Ryan and I, and we greatly appreciate that. So we're going to give it just another 30 seconds or so to give people time to get in, and then we're really excited about today's topic. I mean, AI is hot. AI is, you can't look at anything without seeing it everywhere. And Microsoft Foundry allows us to do some really cool stuff, both with frontier models, and then on device local models, which is really cool. It's a conversation I'm having a ton of, Ryan. I know it's high on your list too. So.
It's funny how it's changed, right? So a year or so ago, it was, should we be doing AI? Should we not be doing AI? And now we're moving into, well, we're going to be using AI, but where should AI live? And that's kind of the idea of putting this all together.
Yeah. Where does it live? How do we do it? All that fun stuff. So, okay. Let's see. Okay. I think I'm actually finally set. So my excuse of giving people time to hop in so that I could get prepared, it worked. We'll go ahead and get started. If you have not joined us before, my name is Taylor Greiner. I'm the Director of Innovation here at US Signal. I'm joined by my excellent colleague, Ryan McDonald. Ryan, I don't know if you want to kind of just introduce yourself quick.
Ryan McDonald, Solutions Architect here with US Signal. Been with the company almost 5 years now. I focus heavily in the Microsoft space, as everybody else probably here is, trying to adopt as much AI as possible, try to stay ahead of the time. So hopefully we can learn a thing or two today.
Yeah. AI is obviously, as we said, it's everywhere, but I think if you really take a look and you really get into it, it's exciting. The things you're able to do as we speak. I have another laptop sitting right next to me with Claude Code running, and I just shift tab as I need to, and then I'll be able to review kind of what was generated and output after this call, because we don't just run output unsupervised. So we're going to go ahead and dive in. Today's topic really is a conversation we're having a ton of: the right AI in the right place. And Microsoft Foundry gives us some really interesting tools that allow us to maybe take back control of where our AI is ran, right? I think, up until recently, the models that people use, you're using OpenAI or you're using Anthropic, and if you're not going directly to the frontier labs, you are using you might be using Microsoft Foundry, the Azure OpenAI services, things like that. You may have explored like an AWS Bedrock or some of the other hypercloud providers. But Microsoft Foundry specifically, really gives us some cool opportunities to look at where we deploy stuff. So, before we start, Ryan, I don't know if you kind of want to hit on, just high level what we're going to be talking about today. And we've got some really cool demos. So excited. We got a lot of content. So see if we can get through it in an hour.
Yeah. So before, again, conversations were, should we be running AI? Should we not be running AI? Now we're far past those days of, we're all going to be trying to figure out ways we can implement AI, but where should AI live? And really the conversations we're going to try to cover today is Microsoft Foundry. I call it Foundry Cloud just to try to help. Microsoft doesn't officially call it that, but just kind of help understand the difference between the next subject would be Foundry Local. So being able to run those open source models directly on a laptop, Mac Studio, Windows Server.
Some end device.
Yep. Kind of where AI can live on the edge then move more into the framework of that. What are those questions that we should be thinking about to ensure we understand where AI should live? Obviously, data security is a big one. And then kind of talking through some of those hybrid pieces. Really, you're going to get through that framework and realize it's going to vary per situation. And that's where we just want to make sure you understand there are hybrid scenarios. And then lastly, just talk a little bit about Copilot Studio. I think when it comes to AI development, from a marketing perspective, a lot of people probably have heard Copilot Studio and like, oh, that's where developers should live. But it's really, if you've got some AI developers and they're really in the weeds and working on stuff, that's going to be a little bit more Foundry Cloud. Whereas your business folks, you can keep them more living in Studio and see how those two work together. So
awesome. All right, so we'll go ahead and dive in. We're going to start with Foundry Cloud. So this is, as Ryan said, this is a platform for building, deploying, governing these agents, and really excited to kind of get into this. We've got a few more slides today than we typically do. And just as a call out, if anybody watching has any questions, we've got questions and comments, available for us to see. So we're happy to answer those. We love these to be, real-time feedback. So Ryan, Foundry had some updates recently, kind of really exciting capabilities. Now, can you kind of dive into, from a high level, Foundry Cloud, like what capabilities you can see some really kind of big numbers there. Just kind of hit on that a little bit.
Yeah. So even myself went to Ignite last November and started really diving into what Foundry really was. You heard it across Microsoft and it was like, okay, but I assume that's AI, but not quite sure. But really, from a basic perspective, Microsoft Foundry is able to load, and you see 11,000 different models in their catalog. One more recently, now you can actually bring in Anthropic's model with their new partnership. And really, Foundry Cloud is going to be that next step above Copilot Studio, where we've got advanced retrieval, tool tracing, safety evaluation, production monitoring, agent-to-agent framework orchestration. It's got all the bells and whistles that you could think of when it comes to AI development.
Yeah, and that's just real quick. That's kind of an interesting conversation because I know both of us have conversations all the time around, like you said, it's moved from like the, hey, should we do this? And even the like, how do we do this, right? Like context windows, I never thought would be like common nomenclature. But, a lot of these AI terms and working with these models has really started to become, I don't want to say table stakes yet. We're still really, really early, right? But, it's becoming really accessible. Now it's moved into, hey, how do we secure this stuff? How do we govern? How do we make sure that, we're not accidentally putting a bunch of PII or, company secrets into a model that may or may not train on that once it's out there. I mean, there's a lot of stories where it's out there, it's gone, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And being able to have that tracing, really where I see Microsoft Foundry is it's kind of that path of least resistance to really dive into AI development. Because right out of the box, it's log into the web page, load a few models, and you already have so many of those security governance tools right there available to you, building out that agent-to-agent framework.
Perfect.
As you can see, there's a reason why so many different Fortune 500s are starting to use these pieces. So
absolutely. And I know we kind of hit on it, but just real quick, if you want to kind of dive into, again, what Foundry really gives us.
Yeah. So again, all 11,000 plus models, and that'll keep going. Not only the frontier models, but access to 5.4, DeepSeek. One thing to call out there is while those are open source models, I made an assumption as well that, okay, sweet. Because Microsoft Foundry as the platform itself is free. So in my head, I was like, well, sweet, that's free. And then I'm going to use 5.4, DeepSeek, open source.
Good to go.
Yeah. Microsoft's got to get paid one way or another, right?
Yeah.
So,
that token as a service model, that's been a conversation I can't get away from right now.
Yeah. But flip side there, you're not having to worry about GPU prices, memory prices, things like that. So there's always pros and cons there. Something that I've joked about the year of 2026, and some folks will say it's 2025. At least for me, 2026 is the year of AI agents. I think if you haven't heard AI enough, you've probably heard plenty AI agents. Everybody's talking about agents. So within Microsoft Foundry, you can load all of your different agents. You can do agent-to-agent coordination, and even not only Microsoft's agent framework, but use LangGraph, Crew AI, not having to worry so much about any Docker containers or anything like that.
Perfect.
The big piece that kind of takes Microsoft Foundry one step above Copilot Studio is their Foundry IQ. That's utilizing their tool, the Azure AI Search, that can connect all your different SAP programs, Salesforce, Dynamics, anything like that.
Awesome.
Next piece, talked a little bit about it before, but when it comes to governance and safety, it's everybody's biggest worry when it comes to AI. How can I make sure my data is secure and that people are using it the right way? You get a ton of visibility into when that agent starts, when that AI prompt starts, all the way to the end. Again, not only for governance and safety for your employees, but also your own data. I think Taylor mentioned this before. We've heard so many different horror stories of agents going crazy, deleting things. Well, this is where we can start putting some of those guardrails in right out of the box.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then just to round this out, developer experience, right? And this really, the OpenAI compatible REST API, right? What OpenAI did with their API is similar to what S3 did with, AWS did with S3 storage. It's become kind of a standard beyond just, the OpenAI models. And so that experience, that standard API allows us to kind of flip between models, which allows us to test locally, maybe deploy in the cloud, things like that. But then just the Microsoft developer ecosystem in general is very, very mature and has been for a long time. So
coming a long way.
Yeah. Okay, rounding out Foundry Cloud, moving into Foundry Local. Really kind of interesting here. And I'm gonna just make sure we've got time for our demos. So
yeah. Yep, for sure. So Foundry Local, maybe not a lot of people have heard about Foundry Local. Personally, it's one of Microsoft's better marketing naming nomenclatures. I think it makes sense. So being able to run models locally on your laptop, Windows Server, Mac Studio, and the beautiful part there, everybody loves to see, $0 per token cost. Data is going to stay local on your machine. We don't even need internet, wireless to get out. That kind of leads into the next part, that offline capability. And then when it comes to the hardware, whether you've got CPU, NPU, GPU, your model will be able to detect and perform on whatever was going to work best for it there without any hard coding for you on the app.
Perfect. Yeah, and we've got more demos to show on this in a little bit, but this is where people are really starting to get excited in the conversations I'm having, right? If you follow a lot of the open source models, a lot of the kind of models that you can run locally, they're getting really, really good. And so having the ability to run them local, the Google Gemma 4 models, you could run locally in this environment. They're getting really powerful, and that allows us to do some really cool things for a lot of different scenarios. So next, we're going to move on to the decision framework, right? And Ryan, I'm going to let you kind of talk through this one. I really like the next slide, but
yeah, we were kind of trying to make it fun a little bit, and kind of it kind of feels like that. I'm sure all of us have played a little Mortal Kombat, and it's trying to decide that decision. Should we be local? Should we be cloud? And understanding that it's all going to depend on that situation, whether it's data. And so we'll kind of go through a few scenarios here and go through some of the questions you should be thinking about.
Awesome. If it'll let me go to the next slide. There you go.
Okay. So pretty obvious one here. Can the data leave the building or leave the device? If no, Foundry Local is absolutely your first pick. Any HIPAA, PI data. If it can, that's where we start looking into, okay, we've got Azure AI Foundry, Microsoft Foundry. You'll see two different names there.
Yeah. And, moving some of that data out to to the frontier models, right? There are contracts in place. There are organizations that are leveraging those tools. I think this is something that even with the contracts in place, people need to be really careful about. And Foundry Local allowing us to have the intelligence at the device, I think just adds a level of safety that I think we all kind of take for granted. You don't want to necessarily peek behind the curtains, like of what does this really mean, and we lean on the contracts. And I think this is a way to truly technically know that we are secure. You can't even get out of the building. So
Yep. And then the next question, do you need that frontier model? GPT-5, Claude Opus, Grok 4. There, as Taylor alluded to before, some of these open source models, 5.4, Quen, they're really starting to catch up to these frontier models where, depending on your situation, it might not be, yes, the frontier model is going to have the latest and greatest, but depending on your situation, you might be just fine with 5.4 Quen, and that's where Foundry Local, again, is going to come into play.
I think a lot of the frontier model stuff is really funny. I know I keep going on tangents. I was with 3-year-olds all morning, so I'm just following them. But the frontier model stuff is really interesting because think of like where we were at 2 years ago, a year ago, and the capabilities that those models came out with. And like our minds were blown and we're like, this could do everything now. And then we look at the frontier models now and just how advanced they are and think back to, Chat GPT 3 or 4.0 or whatever, and we go, wow, how did we ever get by with that level of intelligence? The open source models now are beyond that stuff. And so there's an opportunity to truly sit down and go, hey, is it worth paying the cost of the APIs for the frontier models, or can we get by with the open source capabilities that are currently out there?
We're going to be those old guys talking to Gen Alpha about, back in my day, we were using ChatGPT 4.0.
Back in my day, we had to pay for our models.
Yeah, right. Don't get me going on that.
Yeah. And the next question really kind of plays into that, right? Like, what's the inference volume? What's your budget? If you're high volume, crazy high cost, local's going to win there. If you have the budget and you need those frontier models, the cloud obviously is going to provide that. There's a really interesting story that popped up beginning of April. Uber burned through their entire AI budget for 2026 in 3 months or 4 months, at whatever point. They have, they ran out of budget and we're not even halfway through the year. So, their CFOs sitting there going, man, if we have local inference capabilities that rival the models we're using, I'm imagining there's a hard conversation happening there to see if they make the shift. So it's getting really interesting with with where everything's at.
It's so hard because you run into where you don't know what you don't know. Everybody sees the token cost and they're like, oh yeah, it's 1 cent per million or something. And without realizing it can add up really fast. And it's exciting because you're like, all right, we got this going. We've got people building things. And then, whoa, there went that budget.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a couple more questions, right? Must this work fully offline? If you need full off, local's going to win. It's there, right? You're able to hit it. If you need, if that's not a capability, there may be other options as well. And then, fleet governance, agent memory, multi-agent, things like that. If you need all that, like the Foundry agent service, the cloud capabilities are gonna be perfect. If you don't need that stuff, local is definitely a great option. So, running a real workload through there, Ryan, we've got kind of an example, right? A hospital wants AI assistance for the clinicians. We've got patient notes, we've got SOAP documentation, PHI. What's the decision matrix look like in this scenario?
Yeah. So first question again, can this data leave the device? More than likely, no. And that's where Foundry Local can come into play and be installed on the clinician's workstations. It's just like Taylor alluded to earlier, it's a full stop just no, we already know right then and there, Foundry Local is probably going to play. Do you need a frontier model? Again, 5.4 really does well with SOAP extraction, summarization, and it got obviously testing and things like that. But I think more and more people are starting to see the adoption of some of these open source models that can do exactly what you're going to need to do in your situation. I'll get a little bit more into this later, but when it comes to per user shared device, the answer is per user. Foundry Local is the play. Foundry Local really is meant for that one-to-one. If we're trying to get multiple users trying to use Foundry Local, that's where we look a little bit more towards Foundry, Microsoft Foundry, or PLM, Triton, or something like that.
Perfect. I'm excited for the next slide, so I think we're just going to hop to it.
Yep.
All right, time to see some stuff in action. I know the moment people have been waiting for, the demos, seeing how it works. We've got kind of a fake Meridian Technologies company, but Ryan, what we're going to look for, right, is running this local, seeing the spike in activity, seeing that there's no network connectivity, and truly watching it run local. So I'm going to hand it over to you. Do you have screen share capabilities?
Yes.
Sorry for the technical silence, everybody. Okay, I'm going to add to stage. Oh, I got to remove mine and then add Ryan. Perfect. Ryan, and maybe worth trying to zoom in if possible. Oh man. Let me. Been a while since I've been in VS Code, so
I know.
VS Code zoom screen.
Could probably change my.
Hold Command and plus. See. There you go.
Thank God for Google. All right. So I'm on a MacBook Pro. I've got M4 Pro with 48 gigs of memory. So we are going to be loading 5.4. For a demo's sake, I've already pre-baked it here. So with that, I also have just a little web app running locally on my machine. And as you can see in the code here, I have 5.4 generic.
Zoom this in as well.
Oh, sorry.
I know it's not a universal zoom. Perfect.
Clear this out. So I have some security policy documents loaded on my machine. Just goes over some password policies and things like that. So I'm going to pull up my activity monitor just to show you my GPU percentage right now. I don't know if I'm going to be able to zoom in on this piece, but
that's all right. We'll watch the spikes. If you make this screen a little, click hide on the StreamYard sharing your screen at the very bottom. And then if we go back to your activity monitor, we'll be able to see the graphs. There you go.
Cool. So GPU running just pretty low right now. We're going to go through here and let's ask it, what is our password policy?
And with that running local, are you able to pull up the...
Yep.
Man, unless it's that efficient.
live demos.
I know.
I just did.
Your CPU load dropped.
Right? I know.
Is your API running in the background that it calls to?
Let me see here. Should be.
I don't think I've ever had 4 take this long to respond. Again, the joys of live technical demos.
Yeah. Here, let's do this. Refresh that. We've got. All right.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, so we see that spike on the GPU the CPU percentage is the graph down low. So, okay, so we see the inference service agent spike on percent GPU.
My Mac is getting loud. Hear it churning.
There we go.
Here's our answer. So it grounded off of our security policy, going through the password requirements, password rotation, the MFA pieces. So
Yeah.
One other thing I just kind of show here then. So this was all through Foundry Local. We saw my GPU get a little crazy there. Now I've got a switch here, and basically the same code from the app's perspective, other than we've changed it now where we're pointing this directly at Microsoft Foundry rather than Foundry Local. I don't have any of the Meridian docs in context for that piece, so we should, just to show that it's still not trying to use anything local, is our password policy.
And this one likely to respond a little faster. There's less document review retrieval it has to do.
Exactly. And just showing here the GPU didn't crush and got our response rather quickly. So
I will say that is a positive response that it didn't just hallucinate something.
Correct. Yes.
That's I'd much rather have it say I don't know than make up something on the spot. So
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah. So just kind of wanted to show the two there. We'll get a little bit more into Foundry here in a second, but the big piece, just even from that example, I know it just had a toggle, but I think for most folks, what we're going to see is hybrid's really going to be beneficial. It's not going to be a ton where, okay, I need to, everything's just going to all be in one, especially when we're talking token costs are going to keep increasing. And
yep, absolutely. Yeah. No, again, having that local and you may be going, hey, that response was slow. Like, how can you possibly, use that in production? There are a ton of strategies to speed that up. We haven't done any kind of optimization. We pulled it down. We said run as is. So again, you start to think through like, hey, what type of intelligence does this unlock if I have, text in an area where there's no service, poor service, maybe I've been in data centers where there is no connectivity there, you got a lot of walls between you and the outside, or, you're out in, agriculture, you're out in the farm. Coverage has gotten really good, but there's still blank spots out there, and that cell coverage latency is really becoming a thing. So no, the local aspect of this all is really powerful. And again, I think we're earlier in local AI stages than we are just AI in general, right? So if progression continues on the same trajectory, it's going to be really exciting where we're at a year from now, 6 months from now, even. So
it's really, in my opinion, it's really opened up the door where I think in the last six months ago, I think most folks were, I mean, local AI sounds great, but I might not even have the staff to get this going. The maintenance of it, it's with a Foundry local, some of the other third-party tools you can find out there, that they're really starting to kind of make it a drop and go piece for that. So
absolutely. All right. And Ryan alluded to it earlier, but cloud versus local, like a lot of times hybrid pattern wins. And that's really what we're going to kind of dive into next.
it's funny. I feel like we've gone full circle for when it comes to compute.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody's got to get to the cloud, and then, well, some things it makes more sense to run, and that's, again,
yeah, that's life though, isn't it? Like the all or done. The answer's always somewhere in the middle. So, next up, as we talk through hybrid, we've got 4 patterns that you can see in production. There's more than that. These are pretty 4 common patterns that we're seeing now. And we recommend you kind of start here and really explore. So, the first one is, scrub PII. Use these models, get rid of PII locally so you don't have to send it out. And then you can go do your reasoning, send it out into the cloud. Ryan, anything specific to add on this one? Works really well in healthcare, legal, the industries that are, pretty highly regulated.
Yep. And that's where you might find where a local model is doing the scraping for you well, but the reasoning, the local models aren't there yet. We still need to add on that piece. That's where, again, we leave the reasoning in the cloud, and all of that can be handled within your application to decide where we're going to go, or a semantic model piece as well, model router.
Perfect. The next one, develop local and, do your production in the cloud as organizations are burning through tokens and seeing, costs skyrocket. Like I'm even hearing, I think they're jokes, but I think there's some truth in these jokes around, is it actually cheaper to hire a person to do the AI's job? Because the token costs are getting pretty wild. And you're seeing a lot of the frontier, like I think Anthropic, ChatGPT, they're moving to models where enterprise has to move to API usage. They're not going to subsidize the use, subsidize the token cost as much anymore. So I think a lot of organizations are going to see cost even accelerate further if they already haven't. And one of the first questions for a lot of organizations is going to be, hey, our development budget has ballooned because we're running so much through these. And so this is where, the pushback is going to be, hey, the frontier models are great at developing. And so how can we, why would we use something less? But that's where these open source models, a lot of people are arguing they're, maybe 5 or 6 months behind, right? And their capabilities are pretty wild. So can we implement a pattern where we're developing local with these models? We have, the zero token cost because it's just the cost to, run the devices locally, things like that. And then, as we had mentioned, the OpenAI API standard that's really kind of becoming, the format, just swapping when you're ready to go to prod. So this is a really interesting one. I think it'll shape out over the next 6 to 12 months.
I see this one probably being the most adopted, just like you said, when it comes to token cost and understanding, and again, being able to develop without spending a ton of money.
Yep, absolutely. Next, offline field first operations. This kind of hit on what I mentioned, potentially you're out agriculture or, Tex and farm field. do you have intelligence on the device when you have no connectivity? Local models allow you to have that, and then once you reestablish a connection, then potentially there is leveraging what was collected in more of the cloud for maybe more advanced reasoning or whatever it may be. But this is a really interesting model that I think has a lot of potential. Here in Iowa, which is where I'm located, Ryan, in Nebraska, right? Ag is huge.
Railroad.
Huge industries, railroad, yeah, right. Where can we have intelligence when we don't have connectivity? And this is really opening that up.
Yeah.
And then kind of the last pattern, SLM by default with an LLM fallback. This kind of plays into the same model as like the dev local prod in the cloud. But if we are interacting, this is where semantic routing gets like really interesting, right? So like, how do we appropriately route requests to maybe a more cost-effective model that's not as intelligent, but good enough in most cases, and then fall back to the LLMs when we need that advanced reasoning, right? Ryan's query was a really good example. What's our password policy, right? I don't know that I need advanced super intelligent reasoning to read a document that our organization provides and return that response. Can an SLM meet those needs? One of the open source models that's a lot more cost effective to run meet those needs. And then queries that come in and struggling to even think of an example, but some advanced reasoning with a lot of specific scenarios, things like that, where you need the frontier models. We can route requests to there. Quick anecdote: our CEO, actually, Dan Watts, has built a pretty much his own semantic router on his laptop, where he is routing queries to local models and then a number of different LLMs, and it's really interesting to have him walk through. Dan's not a developer, and I would tell him that to his face, but he built this. He built a tool local. The ability to create is amazing and mind blowing, especially if you've been in kind of the software development space the last decade or so, or longer. Seeing what it's enabled now. But even then, he built that, and then he effectively built a semantic router, and now he's seeing where his tokens are going and what those costs look like. He has built out the hybrid pattern SLM by default, LLM fallback, and it's really interesting to watch. And I think this is another area that's going to really explode. So,
and something for folks to really think about. If you're thinking about AI adoption, really understand that's going to be a really important play to really help save you costs, to not blow through your budget by April.
Absolutely. All right. Let's see. So kind of our final section that we're going to get into, Copilot Studio versus Foundry, right? Microsoft has these AI tools. When do I use Copilot Studio? When do I use Foundry? What does that truly look like? So Ryan, kind of walk us through when do I use what? Like how do I know?
Right. So Copilot Studio, really where that's going to play is for your kind of business analysts, folks that might not know actual coding, so that low code entry level, design the experiences, connect systems, and deploy agents to teams, other channels, things like that. Foundry IQ is that reliable intelligence layer that's going to allow for advanced retrieval, the agent framework, things like that. I use it more as if you're a developer, if you know Python, how to work ins and outs there. Foundry is probably your place to be. But at the same time, they can work together. If we've got Copilot Studio for those business analysts who can kind of visualize and maybe build an agent, but they need certain different models on the back end or different agent frameworks to run through those different steps. That's where the two can kind of play together. So I've got a demo here. Let me share my screen out.
Perfect. Let me remove that. And then once you share yours, I'll promote you to the stage.
I'll get zoomed in.
Okay. Oh, whoa.
Picture in a picture. Cool.
Okay.
All right. So starting here in Microsoft Foundry, you go to ai.azure.com. I have built out an environment here. On the left, we've got our agents, we've got models. Again, you can deploy a fine tune or just a base model, custom models. I'm not going to get too much into the weeds with fine tuning or tools. We'll probably have maybe a follow up on that piece there. But some of the other pieces here would be your guardrails, any other integrations with Purview, those types of things. But start here, I have my agent, our IT policy advisor. Within here, I've loaded in our tools, our policy documents, text documents. Also want to note here, when it comes to knowledge, we can also add in, so these are stored in Azure Blob Storage. So that it can be something you can ground your data off there. Our knowledge pieces we can add from SharePoint, AS3 buckets, things like that. And then within here, we can already start asking those same questions. So let's come up with another one here. When will my password expire? Okay, so based on IT security policy, password expiration depends on your account type, goes through all that, and then shows my document that we had loaded into the file search. So when it gets set up here, we can give it our instructions, things like that. You can have some fun with it with the voice mode. We can go through traces if our agent is doing any agent-to-agent work there, and then some of our monitoring metrics as well. Now, when we want them maybe to work together, I have a developers building out I've got a business analyst who's building out a Copilot and wants to publish this to the teams and wants to have this connected to Foundry on the back end. So I have our Meridian AI assistant here. I have it published to teams. I ran into an issue this morning. I couldn't get it loaded, so I can't quite show that piece there. But
and Ryan, I don't know if you remember, gosh, we got to be pushing up on a year now that we did our first one of these, and we did it on Copilot Studio, and it's amazing just the level of features that have been added just in a year.
It's crazy, and just keeps growing and growing and growing. So within the agent here, I've added that IT policy advisor that sits in the Azure AI Foundry service, and it's got our ID of the agent here. So similar question. Good morning. What is our password policy? It's going to go out to that policy advisor here.
Oh, it wants to work.
Ran into this a couple times. So one thing to note, the connected agents for Studio into Microsoft Foundry is still in preview. So I think there's a couple bugs they're kind of working out there, but again,
fun parts of AI, right? With how fast it moves, you're going to run into stuff.
Yep. The big thing just to remember on this, in this example here, probably wasn't the best, but I have 3 documents, text documents. More than likely that probably could have just lived in Studio, done just fine. But if we're trying to ground off thousands of files, something in Azure Blob Storage or something else like that, that we know maybe a specific model can handle better, that's where we're going to want to start in Foundry, building out that piece and then connecting that back into the Copilot Studio agent to live there.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's a fairly simple use case in the moment, right? But again, you really start to build upon that. You could do some really powerful things. It's amazing. So we've only got two more slides after this one. Again, we really just want to make sure, as you are exploring how we build out agents, and if you want to have a deeper conversation, we can, outside of the webinar, I think deep dive a lot more. We can get more into specific use cases, a lot of cool things we can do. But we just wanted to show, hey, there's the ability to do local. There's some really powerful cloud tools. There's some really, once you get into the agent to agent stuff, like that is just amazing. I mean, it's hard to put into words, what we're starting to see being built. And so, really just want to kind of leave people with some final thoughts as you're exploring like Copilot Studio, compared to Foundry. So again, Studio, business analysts, quick agents, you can plug in the documentation, leverage connections. Foundry is really where, hey, do we need the, kind of full development capabilities? We get really custom with these applications and things like that. So, with all of this, it's always a topic, and we've even hit on it here. How's the stuff priced? What's it going to cost me? Ryan, do you want to kind of, dive through that real quick?
Yeah, so I'll start with Copilot Studio. So the base Studio license for gets you 25,000 credits a month. And how that looks is you buy the Studio license for your tenant, and then you can assign user licenses to the users doing development there. One thing to remember, if your users have Copilot for M365, they have a Copilot Studio license to them. Really where the credits start to come into play is when you're starting to push these agents externally outside of the M365 tenant. If you're trying to push agents internally, there's no added cost there. And not every user, if it is externally, not every user needs a Copilot for M365 license. Big thing to remember there. Those users can just run Copilot for chat, and you just starting to bill pay as you go there.
Perfect.
Microsoft Foundry alluded to this earlier, but there's no platform fee to get in there and start using the pieces there. Each model is going to have a different token costs. So that's just the big thing to make sure you're verifying as you go through. Their Azure AI search, that's going to be kind of that RAG piece for Foundry IQ. There's a free tier available. Highly suggest starting there. And then as you go along, might need to start bumping up with different tiers there. All that. There's some reservations available, but definitely my recommendation start kind of low and get things going. Foundry Local, favorite one, zero cost, right? Now I do have to take a step back there. It's always pros or cons, right? Zero cost for the services, but GPU memory is not getting it cheaper anytime soon. So
yeah.
caveat.
Yeah, if you've tried to buy hardware lately, you'll feel it. If you haven't and you need to soon, get on it now.
Absolutely.
I
Can't recommend that enough.
What was it? I got a quote for something in early February, and we refreshed it just a week ago, and it went up 48% for the exact same SKU. And so,
I think the worst one I'd seen was almost 300%.
Yeah, I'm getting off easy with my almost 50% increase. So perfect. We close to wrapping up. We've just got one more slide. Really, three things that we want you to take away from this. You've kind of seen demos. Again, if you want more deeper dives, please reach out, and we're happy to do that. But the first is that cloud first is really the default right now, but it's not a strategy. It's not the only strategy, right? Really look at how a hybrid architecture is able to support you. Use the 5-question framework that Ryan walked through to make sure that we've got an appropriate strategy for how we handle this stuff. Organizations that are API through the frontier models only right now are really starting to feel it, especially as they open that up to the broad organization. Next, Foundry Local just went GA. Evaluate it. It's free to test, right? Like, get in there, pull it down, see if it meets your needs. Maybe some optimization stuff. Again, it's early, but really powerful. Really starts to open up some things. And then Studio and Foundry together become a very powerful combination. You've got crazy customizable. Your super technical team can really build whatever you need, and then a playground for your business analysts, maybe your less technical team members, to start to build agents in a very controlled fashion. So wild times. We're going to continue to stay on top of AI. We're going to continue to build with it. I know Ryan and I message late at night, most nights, every week, just all the different crazy things that we're seeing, that we're building, that we're playing with. So this is a topic that we love, that we have fun with. And so more to come on AI and how you can leverage it within your organization. Ryan, any final thoughts?
No, again, I know you talked about it earlier, but really happy to go through another, if you want more of that one-on-one conversation, how your organization could use Foundry, even if it's just wanted to kind of walk through getting Foundry Local installed and just seeing those pieces. Again, it's just getting local installed is fairly quick, and then being able to build upon that. It can run on any Windows server, Mac, Windows 11, anything like that. So
absolutely. All right. Well, with that is that's our webinar for today. We can go ahead and hang out. If you have any questions, please go ahead and throw them in the chat. We're able to see those. We're happy to answer. If not, again, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. Try out Local. If you haven't played with any of the AI models in the cloud, do it. Do it soon.
Reach out on LinkedIn too. Connect with us. It's become my kind of go-to daily of just finding new information. Love trying to connect with folks and just kind of sharing the knowledge. It's funny. It feels like it used to be so much. I can't tell anybody what I know because I don't want them to take my job, and it feels like it now. It's let's let everybody know everything.
Yeah, no, it's the age of sharing. So, all right. Well, with that, we will go ahead and wrap up. Again, thank you everybody for taking the time to spend your Friday with us. Again, reach out. Have a great weekend, and hopefully we talk soon. Thanks very much.
Take care.